Welcome back. You are watching Luck on Sunday. My great privilege to welcome my star guest to the studio this week. I've been trying to pin him down for a while. I'm delighted to say that he is here. Not many people excel in one career, let alone two. He has done so. He was a brilliant footballer for Southampton and for England. 21 international goals from 46 appearances. And he has turned his hand to racehorse training in a way that he could only have dreamt of 40 years ago. He is, of course, Mick Channon. Mick, great to see you. And,
lovely to be here.
Great to see you
last.
looking so well at last. I know you're a very busy man and showing no signs of slowing.
No. I mean, I'm lucky that that I've been involved in two sports. You know, I love football. You know, and football has really got me to where to train horses, and racing has been kind to me really. So I've been very lucky.
And we've seen that crossover between top-class footballers and racing for decades now. A lot of top-class internationals have enjoyed horse racing. For you, was it a diversion? Was it a passion? What was it in the early days?
Well, I think possibly there's several reasons. You know, I mean, I come from a little village in Salisbury Plain, Orchiston, which was Richmond Sturdy, and probably going back to those days when he had a decent string of horses, and Tintanger winning the Ebor and things like that. That all added to. And I remember having my first bet ever, £6 to win 100. You know, with Hector Besant, the bookmaker. You know, and I remember him winning. Lester Pickett rode him because Frank Morby said, "Oh, this horse will work great. This will win." And I had £6 to win 100. And I remember going to Hector Besant's. In them days, I didn't have £100 was a fortune.
Yeah.
You know, back in the '60s, and they couldn't pay me out. They said, "Can you come back tomorrow?" And I couldn't understand that, you know. And it was the bookmaker at the top of the road when I was an apprentice footballer. So. Basically, that's where it stemmed from, and the rest is possibly history. You know, I've gone on from there, and just the love of horses. I mean, my father looked after a lot of horses. He was in the horse artillery originally, and everything else has evolved from then. You know, and football gave me the option of owning racehorses, and I've been very lucky since.
People now associate being a top-flight footballer with a very good money, but also under a lot of public scrutiny and a lot of pressure. Was it very different then? Oh
yeah. I mean, I remember starting out as apprenticeships had just come in. Mm-hmm. You know, when I started, and I remember leaving school at 15 and going to Southampton and moving into digs. You know, and I remember we got £7 a week. And with you know what I'm saying, in £4.50 you had to pay the landlady at digs, you know, and they were great days, you know. I remember going into digs there, and there was 4 people from the docks, Southampton docks, Eastleigh Railway Works. There was 4 people, and there was three apprentice footballers, me, Jerry Gurr, and Tony Byrne. And I mean, we were all thrown in together, and that, you know. And I remember the first day I was there. I soon learned I didn't take my eyes off my dinner because, you know, your roast potatoes were gone or something like that. If you look round, but they're just great days. You know, I was lucky that I left home, and I was fortunate enough that I had a lot of great people around me, and that got me through. And that brings me on to David Ellsworth and Richard Hannon, we were born within. Well, we were brought up. We weren't all born in the same area, but within 6 mile radius, we were. You know, there was Richard at Everley. There was David Ellsworth at Netheravon, and me and Truton. But I went to play football, and they went the horse route, and I eventually came back to it. You know.
So had you been friends with them since even before the football days?
Oh,
so you all knew each other. So you all hung around together as kids.
That's right. That's right.
Tell me what was. I'm fascinated. I find him one of the most interesting men in the sport. What was David Ellsworth like as a young man?
He'll have a row in an empty room, Halsey. But we've had rows, we've had fights, you know, disagreements, but we still get on. You know, I mean, we go to football together, we shoot together, you know. And Richard's a star. Richard was the sensible one, you know. Although, don't worry, he was a character in his own right. But you know, 2 smashing people, you know, 2 totally different characters. Yeah. You know what I'm trying to say is you can't put them in the same, but 2 lovely men who are passionate about you know, well, they enjoyed the football, but they were passionate about their horses, and what Richard Hannon done, you know. I mean, his dad had what, half a dozen horses.
Yeah.
Old Harry, I remember him. He was a massive. He was a great character. And then Elsie, who was doing a lot of the breaking and pre-training and what have you, and still did a bit of work in Salisbury Market and things like that. But you know, that was in them days. We all did. We all, you know, there wasn't the money around. We've come from nothing, and it's been great fun. You know, you come through and you get to this stage and you realise how lucky we've all been. You know.
Would you have been a trainer were it not for them? Were they the people that inspired you that way?
I think so. And you know, I had horses with both of them. You know, I had horses trained by both of them. Elsie trained James Mead, was probably the best, and Richard Hannon trained Spill the Beans, named after a taxi driver that used to, you know, inform on us all the time. You know.
What happened to the taxi driver?
Well, Larry the Cab, he was called. You know, he was a great character in Southampton in them days. He was a lovely man.
So was he in the pay of some of the papers?
Well, absolutely. Well, we don't know. He was just a character, but you know, and after me, Peter Shilton would know him well, and Alan Ball. He was someone who looked after all the players at Southampton in them days.
Could you walk down the street when you were in your 20s and 30s without being stopped and chatted to and asked for autographs?
Oh,
and
yeah.
mobbed and...
I think it was a lot more relaxed then. We were part of the community, you know. And you know, we're like it's Southampton. I mean, I didn't play for a London club, so I don't know how it was like what it was like up here. But you know, Southampton. Most of people, all the supporters knew you anyway.
Yeah.
And you just took it for granted, you know. And I went to Norwich, and Norwich was very similar. Norwich is a lovely city. You know, and the people at Norwich and the people at Southampton always felt part of the club, and that's where football is basically going through a sticky time in the sense that all the big clubs now are, the money is basically, I'm not saying spoiling it, because I think that, you know, the Premiership is a great spectacle. The football's good. It's certainly changed. You know. I mean, with VAR and everything else that's going on, you know, I mean, the game's changed. You know, we used to get tackled from behind and things like that, you know, and you know, we had Tommy Smiths and Norman Hunters and all those people to put up with, you know. But football's a little bit different now. It's a bit of a tarts game, I feel.
You had to be tough then. You had to be a tough, hard, resilient sportsman. Yeah, from a spectator's point of view now, watching it, do you think it's as enjoyable to watch as it was for people when you were playing?
I don't want to... Yeah, I hate looking back and saying it was better in our day. That was, you know, those things... You know, things have progressed and things have gone on. But I always remember playing it up at Liverpool, you know, and... I was only just in the team, 16, 17, just got into, you know, and I remember going there and it says, this is Anfield, you know. I mean, I haven't been up there for years, so it's probably all changed. But I remember coming out there and they had Tommy Smith, Yates, they had Ian St John, they had all those great old players. I remember going out on the... and it was intimidating when you got there, you know, and I was only sort of a young lad as well. And I remember walking out and after a minute, Ian Callahan goes around two people, 1-0, and we thought, oh, this is going to be a long afternoon, you know. And I remember about 10 minutes later, you know, I didn't get many kicks that game, you know. I remember getting the ball on the halfway and looking up, and who's from me to you in front of me but Tommy Smith. So I thought, I knocked the ball about 20 yards by him, went round him, round the keeper, 1-1. And I remember walking back to the halfway line, and you talk about intimidation, and he says, you do that again, son, and I'll snap you back. And do you know what?
You frightened me just retelling the story.
And I believe him. I believe he would have. Anyway, to cut a long story short, they beat us 5-1. I probably didn't get another kick, but that was intimidation.
Yeah.
That was, you know, and I mean, I was only a kid, and I remember thinking, cool. and they were tough. Like, you went up north to some of them games, and I was a soft southerner, remember. You know, I played football in the south.
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong, on our day, we could, you know, if they came down here, we couldn't have to give them a tanning down at the Dell. Never mind who it was. On our day, we could hold our own. But when you went up there, cool, it was a different ballgame.
Because it sounds from what you're saying, you talk very fondly about where you grew up and the people you grew up with, that you had to work hard, but it was a sort of, you paint a picture of quite a gentle upbringing.
I mean, everything. The only thing that mattered to us was 3 o'clock to 20 to 5, and that was the game, you know, and all week you would build up to that, and it was all about that. And the whole city, the whole town, whether it was Southampton, whether it was Norwich, or whatever club football was just 3 o'clock to 20, and that's the only thing that mattered.
And so playing some of those big clubs, the big clubs in the north, the Liverpool's and the Manchester Uniteds, did that really toughen you up?
Oh yeah, I think you know, as you got going towards the end of my career, I remember going to Norwich, and I remember he was captain Butcher of Ipswich, and we had some tough games, Norwich again, and that was like a local derby, and you know, and we go back to they used to head the back of your head, some of the centre halves, you know. You know, when you went up to, I mean, talk and tackling behind it, but as you went up to head a ball, they would head the back of your head. And, you know, you'd have no control. The ball would fly back. People say, get out of it. But I always remember, and how was that cured? How did you stop that happening? And there was one player, he played for Burnley, Leicester and Aston Villa. His name was Andy Lockhead. And he stopped that in one game, because all he did, the ball, he threw his head back and he smashed 2 or 3 noses. Oh. It was, honestly, and it seemed it was self-governed. Our football was self-governed in them days, almost. And by throwing his head back, he smashed the defender's nose, so they stopped heading people in the back of the head. I know it's just a little thing, but that's a true story.
Element of the Wild West about it, isn't it? As you say,
absolutely.
Self-governing, but evidently it worked. It's a million miles away, as you referenced a few moments ago, from VAR.
Absolutely.
And judgments being made.
But
how would
VAR? How could they detect whether you meant to do that?
What do you think of it? Do you think it interrupts?
I think it's a shocking thing for the game.
Just because it interrupts the flow, suspends it.
Absolutely. You know, you're waiting for things to happen, and you're talking of millimetres. And can that camera get everything right? I don't know. There's got to be some sort of discretion. I would have thought so. I find it very offensive to the game. I think it's spoilt the game. Do
you think they'll go back?
And I know all the lads there on the television are going to say, "God, it's the best thing happened to it." But I can't see that happening. You know.
The trouble is the genie out of the bottle now? I don't think they'll go back. Once you move technologically there, can you actually come back?
I don't think it'll go back, but I think they've got to, whatever they do, they've got to make it. There's got to be some room for error, or you know, there's still going to be controversy, but you can't stop the game. Football's not that sort of game. Like, I don't think it's like cricket.
No.
Where cricket can be quite exciting, waiting for the.
It can, but even with DRS in cricket, they've come back a little bit. They've refined it. They've honed it.
Well, that's right.
To try
and I'm sure they'll do something else, but they've got to sharpen it up. It's got to be slicker, in some way.
You're still evidently massively passionate about the game.
Oh yeah, well, football. Without football, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like the. You know, you know, I was watching early before I come in, and they're still going on about the whip and the things like that. We love animals. God, there's none of us are in the game, and the big stick doesn't work. You know, I promise you, it doesn't work with animals more so than with human beings. And it just doesn't work. And the positive side of it, the horses are looked after like you've never seen in your life, you know, and the stable staff, the dedication to people, we've still got little problems. We need more staff. There's lots of things that can be done. You know, we need more prize money. We need everything. You know, we'll always go on about that. But there's an awful lot of good things in racing. There's a lot of good things in football. But there's still things that we're going to have to put together. And you're nothing in either of these sports unless you've got the passion for them. In that 1 minute there, you've just
pulled together so many strands of the great things about horse racing and some of the difficulties in the sport. When you started training, what was the hardest? What did you find hardest?
Get me licence.
Because the Jockey Club wouldn't give you one.
That's right.
Which is a well-told story, but worth telling again, I fancy.
Well, yeah, I went to Portman Square. It was Portman Square in them days, and I sat down and Dermot Brown was next to me.
That's not a good start.
So I thought, so Dermot was in there, and he couldn't have been in there 3 or 4 minutes. He came out, he went, well done, got me licence, everything's great, So then I went in, and I'm in there about half hour, and they asked me if I'd go out, and then, so I went out and come back in, and they had obviously had a chat. And I remember some of the questions they asked me. They said, what experience have you got? And I said, well, I've been with John Baker and for a year and down in Devon and Ken Cunningham Brown. We had a few of our own horses we were messing around with in between the transition. I hadn't done sort of a lot of the assistance jobs that all the others had, but John and Rodney Baker down in Devon were brilliant to me. They gave me a year down there. Which was a great experience.
Tiverton, was it?
Tiverton, yeah, Tiverton.
Bakers,
yeah. Still speak to Rodney now. He's still going well, which is great. And and that's basically where it comes. But I remember, and I think the other thing they said, "Do you ride work?" And I looked around and I said, "Does Jeremy Tree?" Because Jeremy Tree, what I'm saying is, it was a silly thing. I'm 12. I'm nearly 12 stone. Do I ride work? No, I don't ride work. But that don't mean to say I can't sort of. Relate a little bit of common sense to the whole job, and there's a lot of people like myself who've come into racing that well, I did ride horses, but very poorly, and I think that it took a little bit of time to get accepted, let's put it that way, and eventually, I got my licence. I had to wait another 6 months to get my licence, and well, the rest is history, really. We started at Lambourne and now we've ended up at West Ilsley.
And did that initial difficulty, did that strengthen your resolve? Did you sort of walk away quietly thinking, right, I'll show you what I can do?
Well, we were going. It was funny. I had to meet the security man. This was just before the head of security, the Jockey Club head of security, and I would arrange to meet David Ellsworth in Cheveley service station to get a lift. We were getting a lift then up to Newmarket Sales, and he says, I hadn't better come, because if he sees me, he says, I've had bloody rows with this fellow all my life, ever since I've been training, going back to Coombs Ditch.
He wasn't the ideal wingman for you, was he?
So I said, no, I said, you'll be all right. So anyway, I went there, and next minute, Elsie walked out, and they bumped into each other, and Elsie said, you won't get your licence, He was right. I had to wait another 6 months.
So you blame him for that one?
No, but Elsie was right, in saying that, I should have met him on my own,
And things happened quite quickly, didn't they? Once you did get your licence, the winners started to come nicely.
We were lucky that I had when I first started, I had probably, I think we only had about 12 horses, but they were all right, and I think we had 16, 17 winners in our first year, but that was a mixture of jumping and flat horses, and then probably had a decision to make, and jumping is such a long, drawn out thing. You've got to have so much patience, and you've got to wait so long for the horses to mature, so I said, the only route, and I was basically a flat man anyway. I was more into the flat than I was. And we decided to go to the sales and try and buy sharp 2-year-olds, which we didn't have to wait for, and a bit like Archie Watson's doing now. In them ways, I think he's in the same yard as what I was in at Lambourne. But we got on with 2-year-olds. Well, the rest is history. We had lots of 2-year-old winners, and then I was lucky enough that the Mac Tombs came along, and we had some nice horses for Ahmed. Ahmed was kind enough to send some, and then along came Jabber, and the rest is,
And then, so Sheikh Ahmed Bint Al was a personal favourite.
That's right.
Again, it's a tale of real unfulfilled potential, really, what might have been.
That's right, but that seems to be, we've had a few of those. I think the most disappointing one would have been Queen's Logic, I think. You know, I mean, she was unbeaten. You know, I mean, she was brilliant 2-year-old. She won the Cheveley Park by 6 or 7 lengths. You know, Steve Drown rode her, and she absolutely bolted up on desperate ground in a very good time. And then she won the Fred Darling next year. And we were, you know, I remember being at Newmarket for the 1,000 guineas, because the 2,000 guineas, because the 1,000 was on the Sunday. And Mark Wallace rang me up and he said, the filly's got a drop in her foot. And I remember getting in the car and driving straight back, you know, because I was going to stay up overnight, you know. And I thought, well, we might just get away with it. We poulticed it all night, we tubbed it, we did everything we could. And the next morning, we had the vet there and everything, and she was sound, but she was just tender, if you know what I mean. She was little bit sore, and we had a decision to make. You know, do we think, or do we wait for the Irish, which is in three weeks' time? Well, probably the biggest mistake I've made in my training career was I didn't run her. You know, and I said, right, we'll wait for the Irish, and 10 days later she had a dirty scope, and Jabber retired her on the spot. And that was probably the biggest disappointment in racing.
That
you know?
Must have been a tough day.
That was, you know, but to retire because he didn't want her to get beat, you know. So, but that was hard to swallow. That was the hardest thing, you know. But we've been lucky as well, you know. We've had
that leads me on to something I read that you said that really interested me and really struck a chord with me when you said he didn't want her to get beat. When you were talking about another great horse that he owned.
Humans.
Oh, what a wonderful horse. Second in 3 arcs, but
absolutely.
not just second in 3 arcs, second to Zerkava, See the Stars and Dylan Thomas,
That's
which
right.
he should have been put up in the stewards.
Yeah.
We'll come to that in a minute. But you said, problem is that people are far too frightened of getting beaten these days.
Yeah.
And that is in part why this horse gets a bit of a panning, because I run him, he runs well, he gets beat, so what, we move on to the next one.
Exactly.
Do you still stand by that?
Well, that's right. I think that most owners now, they've got to that stage where they don't. We've got to a stage, but our whole society has got to a stage now where, you know, they want everything perfect, and things aren't perfect. You know, certainly horses and that. You know, the sooner they get beat, the better for me. I like them to get beat first time and then improve, and then if they, but
to learn,
absolutely, and progress. You know, but. I don't know. I think that everyone expects to win. You know, it used to be great fun to think, well, you know, when I started out, we had this horse. Yeah, we'll give it a run. We'll see how we go. And what I'm saying is, we'll see how it improves. And you know, to win a little race at Salisbury, you know, plan a race out used to be great fun. You know,
feel your way to a target.
Absolutely. You know, have an aim. You know, say, well, it doesn't matter now. That doesn't happen anymore. People don't sort of think, well, we'll give it a run, we'll let it come on naturally, we'll see how we develop. It's all about winning, and because it costs money, you know, it is so expensive to have a horse in training, and I think that things have changed, and everybody is expecting to win all the time, and the pressure on, well, on a lot of trainers is, well, you can see it almost. You can, you know, I mean, on the way it affects trainers, I think. I don't want to name names, but you know, I look around and I think, well, you know, that it's taken its toll on people. You know what I'm trying to say is, it used to be fun, now it's a business.
But you still get enjoyment out of it.
I still get, yeah, I'm lucky because, well, I think you know, I've been around that long now, and it doesn't really matter. You know, it doesn't matter now. I still get. I mean, I got as much fun out of winning a cellar at Newmarket early this year, you know, perhaps because I had a few quid on, but, you know, I mean, my few quid is nothing. You know, what I'm saying is, but if I have a couple of £100 on and a horse wins at 10 to 1, I get a buzz out of that, you know. Do you
still get the buzz out of that you did when you had the 100 to 6 all those years ago?
Oh, yeah, I think I do.
Is it a similar feeling now?
But what I'm trying to say is, we worked out where that horse was going. And that's where I got the fun out of it as well. It hadn't just happened. You know, we've bred the horse. You know, I thought, well, how good is it? Where should you go? And, you know, I'm saying, give it a couple of runs and then take it from there.
And breeding horses, again, that's something in the planning. It's the all in the planning, isn't
Yeah.
it? You obviously enjoy that side of it.
Well, I mean, my hobby would be the breeding. You know, my business is the, you know, when people say you're a trainer, I says, no, I'm a horse dealer. You know what I'm trying to say is now, because if I got anything that's good enough,
Off it goes.
unfortunately, I can't afford to keep it. And that's where the jumping is good. You asked me what's the difference. See, the jumping doesn't matter so much because they're not worth as much.
And you've got some lovely jumpers now. In a full circle, thanks to Henrietta
I'm very lucky that
the
you know
Radfords, yeah.
that Tim and his boys are mad about jumping, and people say, hey, do you like? I said, I like training good horses, and I'm lucky I got a couple of group jumpers. I haven't got my flat horses aren't as good, but that don't mean to say that they won't be next year or we won't find something next year. And that's the great thing about the flat; it's happening quicker. The jumping, they come along and you go, oh, you've got one. All of a sudden, but it's probably taken 3 years. Time they've schooled it and they found it. You know, whether I think it was the Costellos, a lot of the horses come from of Tim's, and sold them to Hen. Hen's got them home, done a lot of schooling. It's been a long job. And all of a sudden, Mick Channon gets the benefit. You know what I'm saying? It is of training good horses, and that is great fun.
It's so nice to see how much you're still enjoying and relishing this game. I feel like I say this every week. I feel like we're only scratching the surface, but you're going to stay with us for a little bit longer.
Yep.
Brilliant. For the moment, Mick Channon, thank you very much indeed. Subscribe to Racing TV to be notified when more Luck on Sunday videos are appearing online. And don't forget to join me for the show every Sunday morning from 9 o'clock with the best guests.